Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Thanks for joining in once again. Today we are going to be doing something that's been taking a lot longer than I thought. I got this part in about, I would say like a week and a half ago. I've just been super tired after work. I haven't really had the motivation to get this done. So today is finally the day I decided to set aside some time to get this going. I talked about it in my last video. If you guys missed that, I installed the Forge Motorsports blow-off valve. If you guys missed that and you're interested in that, take a look here. It sounds amazing. I'm loving it so far. And we're going to be installing an ethanol sensor kit that goes on my Aeroforce Interceptor gauge. Now this is an add-on kit. It allows you to read the ethanol content in your fuel tank. And in turn, this basically helps you to tune for E85 or any kind of E blend. It lets you know how much exactly is in your gas tank, and it kind of just skips over basically all of the guesswork. If you're like me and you're on Eurodyne, you can adjust those Eurodyne sliders accordingly to run the tune that is specific for your E content. So very useful. Guys, if you're interested in an amazing multi-gauge, I highly recommend checking out the Aeroforce Interceptor. I'm going to link that video right over here, guys. Take a look at that installation. It is fairly straightforward, plug and play. So what does this kit come with? It comes with the ethanol sensor analyzer. It comes with the control box. It comes with the wiring harnesses. Everything you need to get this running on your gauge, your Aeroforce Interceptor. Now, a few things you might need that don't come in the kit. You're going to need some fittings to attach from your fuel line to the sensor itself. Now, the size of it may vary depending if you're running OEM lines. If you're like me and you're running the Precision Raceworks, the upgraded fuel lines, the blue hose, I'll show you quickly here. The fitting you're going to need is, it's got to be an AN6 3/8 fitting that will attach from the hose. And it's basically like a quick disconnect to the ethanol content analyzer. Here is a quick example of the fitting that I purchased. So this goes to the fuel line, and this is the part that connects to the actual ethanol content analyzer. You unscrew this, plug it in. Before you totally snug it up, you put the end fitting on. And it just screws right on, and this, I think is a pretty solid connection, and you should not have any leaks if you put this on correctly. I purchased this off of Amazon from a company called Evil Energy. I'm going to put a link down in the description of where you can purchase this from. And for the most part, that's pretty much all you're going to need. So let me show you guys how to install it with my current setup. If you guys are on upgraded lines, take a look into this install, and let's get into that right now. First thing is first, we are going to unplug some of the connectors to the fuel pump, start the car, and let the fuel pressure die down. All right, so passenger seat, we're going to pop off this lid. And we're just going to take off this connector here and this one and let the fuel pressure die down. But let's get a cold start in the meantime.
A few moments later.
Okay, so that took a little bit longer than expected. After a short while, the engine ran out of fuel and the engine shut off. So this is the basic outline of how this is going to work. So my fuel line right here, the ethanol sensor analyzer will go between, I will cut the hose in the middle. It will go between there. I will plug this into the sensor harness, and the power and wiring harness to the gauge will be routed through here behind this flap, back here, and into the grommet where it will go inside. All right, so we got the intake off over here. I did disconnect the coolant bottle just to give myself a little bit more wiggle room when I cut the hose. And I took out the battery mainly because I want to show you guys where you're gonna put the wiring through. So I'll get a closer look, but that right there, you see that one right here? That's the rubber grommet you're going to use to get into the engine bay, get in through the engine bay into the cabin, and you're basically going to puncture that. There's another one just over here. Can see if I can get a better view. right here. All right, so after I did the cut, I did connect one of the fittings on here, and I did put the clamp on here, and I ended up connecting it and tightening it down like I demonstrated earlier in the video. Now with that cut, this was easier, this line right here was easier to pull off on its own because it wasn't connected as one piece. And I did pull it off and get the other fitting on it and clamped it off as well. All right, so before we continue on with the rest of the installation, I'm not even trying to front and pretend like that was easy to get those fittings on, because it was not, and I struggled to get those on there. I'll be honest with you guys, this is probably the hardest part of the install. For you guys that do have the Precision Raceworks fuel lines, you know that they are stiff as hell and they are pretty hard to work with. So getting those fittings in there was definitely a challenge. Just a tip for you guys, I'm not sure if you guys have your tips of your own. If you do, comment down below. But what I personally did, I boiled some water, threw it in a cup. I dipped one end of it into the cup, let it sit there for a bit to make sure the rubber got a little bit, you know, more workable, and it made it a lot easier to push in the fitting. And definitely, guys, use lubrication. Definitely use lube. Obviously, if you don't have any automotive lube, I'm sure you guys can get creative and use something, you know, something around the house you might have. Obviously, after I used that and got the fitting on, I was able to wash it out clean. Yeah, and it's been sitting for a while, but we are good to go. Continue the install, get this other line fitted onto the ethanol sensor, and let's get the wiring going right now. Okay, so this is where we're currently at with the install. So the lines are connected, the fittings are connected, the sensor is connected. The other side of the hose is connected to the fuel regulator here. And I got the sensor harness plugged in. Now, how I have this routed right now, it is going past the regulator through this little flap over here, around, all around, and exiting close to where the battery is, right over here. Now, how you get this flap loose, there are actually little they're actually like little retainer clips. There are two of them, as you can see where the hole is. All you got to do is just twist it counterclockwise. Just be careful, they're a tad bit sharp, and then they pull right out, and then you could pull this flap out and tuck your wires underneath. Put it through the grommet. So you have two options, this grommet right here or that grommet right, let's get the focus right there. Now the next step we need to do is put this together to get this gauge powered. A few things we have here. This comes with the kit, as well as these two wires. This 3-wire harness actually comes with your Aeroforce Interceptor gauge. It is essentially to allow you to connect analog inputs on this. So this is the controller box. We got one port here on the bottom. This is where your ethanol sensor cable is going to plug into. And on the top, we got 2 ports. One being for your power cable. This is to power the ethanol sensor itself. This will plug in right here. Okay, so red being power and green being for ground. So all we're going to have to do is connect the power, the red wire, and tap it into the fuse box. Now to do that, we're going to need this. It's an add fuse, an ATM add fuse. Now this will allow us to unplug one of the fuses, plug this in, and use it as kind of a tap into the fuse box. After that, here is the output harness. So we got 2 of them here, green and red. It allows you to read ethanol percentage, and it allows you to also see your fuel temperature. So green being for ethanol percentage, and the red is for the fuel temperature. Now, these come into factor when you're connecting it to the actual 3-wire harness from the gauge itself. Now, red is for a 12-volt power if you're going to power the gauge externally or switch power there. Green is for analog 1, and white is for analog 2. Why you're going to need to remember that is depending on how you connect the output wires, that is what you're going to set it up in the gauge menu itself. So in this specific case, just to make it easier, let's go green with green. Match that up, and this will be analog 1. White is analog 2. Red wire we will hook up to the white. Okay, so the wiring is pretty much complete. The power wire, okay, and it is attached to the add a fuse wire here. As you can see through a crimp connector, I added some heat shrink tubing. The green, which in this case is the ground, I've just kind of stripped because we have to connect this to a ground. And I'm going to show you exactly where we're going to connect that to. On this side here, we did put the 10 amp fuse in here. Reason being is this is going to be connecting into a 10 amp slot. So we'll add the other fuse up here. We'll connect this over here onto the control box. Over here with the output wire, if we go and see the connection, we have it to with the wire harness that goes directly to the gauge. Green being analog wire 1. So obviously we've connected it to the green wire here. And analog 2, we've actually connected it to the red wire. Now on the output harness, these two white wires are actually grounds for the different outputs. Now because our gauge is the OBD2 version, we do not actually need to connect these grounds for the actual output wire, just because the gauge itself is grounded once connected to OBD2. So I'm going to quickly show you how to connect this all up. We take the harness, the output harness, connect it to the control box. This end here with the 3-wire harness connects directly into the top portion here, just like so. The only thing left to do now is bring this to the car, get this to plug into the fuse panel, plug in the ethanol sensor connector right here onto the control box. That's pretty much it. The installation is complete. We're just going to have to do some settings on the gauge itself to activate it. Okay, so we're in the car right now, and we took out the panel here. We have our gray wire that we put in through the grommet coming through here. All right, now I'm going to show you guys which fuse we need to pull. I'm going to highlight it here in the video. That number 10 is the one we're going to pull. All right, so we're back here. We got the fuse out. For you guys that are not aware, there's actually a fuse puller actually in the fuse box inside the engine bay. So you pull this, it's actually on the bottom over here.
We got the add a fuse in there plugged into the same slot I pulled that I pointed it out. Now from this power wire we are going to connect the ground, and we got the green wire, which is the ground, to that that bolt over there.
All we have to do in this case is just plug in the ethanol sensor connector into the control box, or the one that's going through the grommet. We connected our power wire back up to the control box right here, and our output wire is connected, and we have it routed to go right through this hole we drilled over here. If you guys missed that, obviously take a look at my installation video for the Aeroforce Interceptor gauge. All the steps I did here to drill this hole out and get to these areas are in that video. So we're gonna connect this to the back of the Aeroforce Interceptor gauge. Okay, so we got everything buttoned up, reinstalled, battery back in, and let's go inside and do those settings on the gauge to get this thing working. So we just started the gauge up, and we are going to go set up this gauge in order for it to read the ethanol percentage and the fuel temperature. So we're going to go to the parameters right here, press both buttons for OK, select it OK if your vehicle year is 2015, mine is not, so I'm going to click no. Now non-metric for most of the people in the States that measure in Fahrenheit. Me in Canada, I would go no for Celsius, but just for this video, I'm just going to go with Fahrenheit. Click OK. You want to select under the parameters the analogs, which are near the bottom here. Hover over them and select both of them. We are going to go back to the main menu and head over to analogs to give us the correct reading. So analogs. So guys, edit number 1, it is referring to analog number 1. Here, according to the instructions, guys, here are all the settings we need to input into the gauge in order for it to read the ethanol percentage and the temperature in either Fahrenheit or degrees Celsius. Okay, so in this case, edit 1 is referring to analog 1. So let's go edit that. Let's click OK. Great thing about this gauge, guys, it looks like it has all the settings for ethanol percentage already pre-selected and set up. So you're just going to have to click OK, and that will set it up perfectly. So keep title, it's referring to the label. So it said ethanol percentage. In this case, we're going to keep that. Click OK. Now we're going to edit analog 2. So it's asking us if the label is also ethanol percentage. In this case, it is not. Click no. And here's where we input the settings according to the instructions. So it's asking us for the slope. So referring back to the instructions, let's look at the degrees Fahrenheit. Slope is positive or plus 59.4 and the intercept is minus 40. So it's asking us for slope right here. We're going to go to plus, enter 59. The P on the side here is actually for period. So 59.4. Okay. And then we're going to go over to the X and click it to accept it and move on. Now it's asking us press the right button for OK. So we press that and it has accepted that. Now intercept, we're going to head down to minus and just input 40. As you can see, it's showing as minus 40. Click the X once again to acknowledge the changes. Press the right button to finalize. Now it's asking me to keep title. Obviously, I don't want to do that. Click no. It's asking if you want to change name to. Click OK. And then here are all the settings for the labels that are preset. So we want to go down to fluid temperature. Press both buttons to OK that, and we are good to go. I have 94 octane currently in my gas tank right now. So with 94 octane, it is advertised to have up to 10% of ethanol. And check that out, guys. It is reading perfectly. As you can see, it's hovering between 9 and 10%. So that is perfect. All we have to do now, guys, is top off the gas tank with some more E85 and we're good. Let's go for a run and get a log going. Alright guys, so the ethanol sensor is in. The car is reading ethanol content perfectly. We filled it up, we're ready to go. Let's hit the road, let's get some logs, and let's get this car tuned. Guys, I can't wait to see how much power this car can make, man. I've been waiting so long for this. Finally, time has come.
You lose.
Well guys, that's pretty much it for this video. Unfortunately for me, Mother Nature is just not cooperating with me right now. At the end of the day, guys, it took a little too long to install this, so that's completely on me. Right now the temperature is hovering, just above 0 degrees, maybe 4 degrees to -1. It's possible that we can still get a decent day with a decent temperature, so crossing my fingers for that. I just want to get a few logs in so I can get this tune finalized and possibly get in for a dyno before the end of the year. I'm hoping this video helped you guys out. For an all-in-one gauge solution, highly suggest checking out Aeroforce Technology. I'm really happy with the gauge and the product. So guys, thanks again for joining. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe. My name is John, this is Champagne S3, and we will catch you on the next one.